Welcome to the Wellbeing Festival. This afternoon's session will get going in a few moments, but just before we do, my name's Dave Harrison, and we're going to today, once I hand over, we'll be talking about and looking at how can stories look after us. So a drama therapy approach. The session is recorded, but there will be parts of this session which will be audited or edited out after the session when feedback is asked for from colleagues across whoever's attending, really. So we'll make sure that psychological safety is done at the editing side. Myself will be leading this session and handing over in a moment to Kyriaki and Danai. But in the background, I have Anne supporting me, who's running the chat box and anything else. So please feel free to use the chat box to ask questions, to engage, to participate as and when you want. The session, as mentioned, is recorded, so just be mindful that that recording has now started, but everything, as mentioned, just to say that one more time, will be edited out at the end. For those of hard of hearing, there is a loop or transcript that you can hit, so you can follow it like that as well. Please feel free to participate, engage, ask questions, use the raise hands function, chat in the box, use your mics, use your cameras, and hopefully we'll have a great session. So it's my pleasure to hand over to Danai and Kyriaki, who are going to present this session, and I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you very much, ladies. Over to you. I will stop presenting.
Thank you very much, David, for your wonderful introduction, and welcome to everyone from myself and Kyriaki. I'm going to start sharing my screen now. So please do let me know if you can see that, okay? I imagine that's a yes. David, I can see you right now. Yeah.
Yes, that's all good.
Lovely. So very little introduction really of ourselves. I'm Danai and I'm a drama therapist. I work for the complex PTSD service as a psychological therapist. And Kyriaki?
Hello from me as well. My name is Kyriaki. I'm a drama therapist as well, and together with Danai, we're at the same team within the complex PTSD service of NHFT.
We're very delighted to be with you today and take this opportunity to talk about drama therapy and storytelling and imagination and how can they look after us and how. A little bit of an overview for today. We're going to talk a little about drama therapy and storytelling. We're going to touch upon trauma and why potentially taking care of ourselves is important, especially when we're delivering and shifting towards a trauma-informed care. This will be the presentation part, and then we're going to move towards a more experiential part, which will involve telling a story. We will do that, don't worry, and then respond to it through creative ways that we're going to invite you, and then potentially reflect on whether storytelling can be another way for our well-being to be increased and to take care of ourselves. First things first, I wanted to just say, please do look after yourselves. We're hoping this session to really be for your well-being. So if you need to turn off your camera, to step away for a second at any time, please do. You can, we would like you to be on camera so we can see you, but again, it's totally okay if you don't. And yes, these are some also sources of support in case anything you hear is at all causes any distress or you just need any further support. So yeah, do take care of yourselves today and every time. Kyriaki, I'll hand over to you.
So thank you very much, Danai. So today we will be talking about drama therapy to begin with. And drama therapy, for anyone who doesn't know what it is or knows just a little bit, it's a form of psychological therapy. And in drama therapy, all of the performance arts, such as drama, music, dance, they are utilized within the therapeutic relationship. As drama therapists, We draw on our trainings, both in theatre and therapy, to create methods to engage clients in affecting psychological, emotional, and social changes. Our creative techniques, they engage both the body and the mind, and that is to enable clients to explore difficult and painful life experiences through what is an indirect approach. And that is particularly useful for clients with overwhelming experiences and emotions. And that is exactly because of the distance that the creative mediums and the metaphor provides as well. Thank you, Danai. So a little bit more about drama therapy. It enables clients to express and work through problems they are encountering, maintain their well-being, but also celebrate their achievements as well. The medium that we use is drama and theatre, and that is to support personal growth, emotional resilience, and change. And some of our techniques, they include role play, inaction, and this is either by using scripts or engaging with improvisations as well, use of objects, puppets, masks, storytelling, use of play, games, and many, many more as well. Where we focus and the therapeutic element is in process rather than the product in a way. So not the final enactment, rather than the journey of the person engaging with the creative mediums. So what happens with storytelling in drama therapy in a way? So looking back, we might remember maybe from movies, from own experiences, stories being shared in the evenings amongst peers, families, or even these images of stories being shared at the fireside. So with the fire in the middle, in a way as a symbol of safety, nurturing, a spark of imagination as well. And that is to connect, to entertain each other as well. There is a nice quote here. So stories are a poor man's cinema. So stories are for everyone. Myths and fairy tales, they're accessible, easy to remember, and have a profound resonance. Stories can be seen as an act of transition as well. They create this shift from the external world to making space for imagination. And that's what we call the liminal space. And that's where the mind can potentially feel free and psychological changes can happen. The aim of storytelling is to find wisdom and insight. And we also have the ability to explore storytelling further through enactment as well.
And I would like to very briefly today discuss about trauma as it links very well with why potentially storytelling can be beneficial for healthcare professionals' well-being. And as you know, trauma may be, when we talk about trauma, we may mean a single event or a repeated event, and at the same time, we may also mean how we are affected by potential traumatic experiences. When the trauma is repeated and chronic in a way, that can cause what is called developmental trauma or complex trauma. You may have heard it, and in the more perhaps extreme way, can cause complex PTSD. One of the main effects of trauma, the way I think of it, is that when a person is traumatized, they almost organize their life as if the trauma is still going on. That means that the world is experienced with a totally different, if you like, nervous system that includes their body, mind, and brain. The thing that is also potentially very challenging for people who have had traumatic experiences is to imagine and use their imagination, if you like, to find alternatives, almost as if in the picture, you know, in that maze. Potentially a traumatized person may know only one way, and this is what they expect, this is why, this is what they know, this is what they do. Now, with adding imagination in one's potentially life and healing, what we want to do is to shift that loss, if you like, of imagination and that loss of mental flexibility. Because as Van der Kolk says, without imagination, there might be subsequently no hope, no chance to envision a better future, no place to go, or no goal to reach. So when we talk about trauma-informed care and shifting towards this approach, the main difference really is thinking shifting from thinking what is wrong with you to considering what happened to you. So already that adds, if you like, a relational aspect, and it's based upon the principles, if you like, of trauma-informed care, which are really based upon empathy, trust, empowerment. And another nice quote that we've added here is Judy Hermans and her work on trauma and recovery. So she says that recovery can only take place within relationships. And if trauma has happened in one relationship, it can only be healed, if you like, within another. And that includes, so the expectation is that people in their relationships with others will try to deform, if you like, these traumatic experiences, and some of their basic, if you like, operations will be based on trust, autonomy, initiative, competence, identity, and intimacy. So these capabilities, no matter how they may have been distorted or not, they can be reformed in relationships. And trauma-informed care is amazing and it's needed because trauma is very wide. But at the same time, the risk with that is that exactly because at its core, the healing comes from their relationships and it really asks us to be involved with people, there is a risk of that a repeated exposure towards other people's trauma may re-traumatize us in a sense. It's not a myth really that healthcare professions often attract people who may have had their own difficult experiences. And I think it's important we do acknowledge that, and we do accept that at times we may get triggered. So we really want to talk about what are the things that can prevent that, what are the things that we can do that can support us in avoiding, if you like, when we can, or when we do, to actually address it and again, move through it, if you like. So you may, secondary trauma is also referred as vicarious traumatization or burnout.
Thank you, Danai. So, what is the role of storytelling in healing? We would say that storytelling is an important phase on healing trauma. According to Judith Herman, when a survivor tells their story, that becomes a testimony, and that testimony becomes a ground on which survivors can rebuild their sense of belonging, gain validation, and claim their right to justice. Trauma treatment needs to engage the entire organism, and that is also to allow the body to have experience that will contradict the hope, the helplessness, the rage, and the collapse, which could be a result of trauma. If I'm correct, I spotted a bit of a question in the chat regarding examples of trauma. Some examples of trauma would be abandonment, would be violence, any type of assault, and it's not only one type of trauma. A person's history could have multiple traumas. Stories, imagination, embodiment allow for a different experience to be integrated within one's body. And that can have a transforming effect. So transforming trauma entrapment to allowing a person to imagine their future again, become involved, take an active role. Storytelling and self-care. Together today we will explore how these two could be interlinked. So stories help us to connect to ourselves in a different way, almost paradoxical in a sense, as they allow us to connect with ourselves but through a safe distance, keeping this distance if it feels okay and safe, and then potentially sometimes removing the metaphor and thinking of the parallels with our lives. Storytelling and stories can offer catharsis, and that is a sense of, for example, finding justice, thinking about the journey of a character, how it ended, how they found meaning. They can be a bridge to reality and imagination. Storytelling can soothe and regulate. It can help us reflect and make meaning. And stories promote empathy and change.
And really, what we would like to invite you and us as well, together with you, we would like to think together of these questions. Can stories look after us? And my invitation is to shift away, if you like, from the presentation a little bit and move towards the more experiential activity that we'd like to share with you today. Is maybe think a little about whether a story jumps out of you. Maybe it's a story that someone told you in the past, maybe even childhood, maybe recently. Maybe it's a story that you do like to read or say out loud to your own children. Maybe it's a story that you've read. So please feel free to share on the chat this story with us. It would be lovely just to see different stories that people may feel some kind of connection or some kind of just stayed with them, something that you always remember. And I'm going to stop sharing now so I can also see you. Let's see. So, oh, Beth, I cannot quite read that, but I can read the Welsh dog childhood story. Yeah. Oh, that's lovely. Okay.
Stories can also relate with our backgrounds as well, the folklore tales and the myths.
Myths, yeah. And stories can include also, the stories that our family may tell us. It's really precious. The Midnight Library. Oh, I'm reading that now. Don't give me any spoilers, please, because I really, really like it. Oh, that's lovely having some more. The story of Jack. Yeah, Jack and the Beanstalk. That's your facial expressions. That's lovely. Oh, and actually this story, Jack and the Beanstalk, it's one that I remember myself reading, and it's amazing how you can just remember pictures of the book, even if it was a million years ago. Thank you very much. Oh, that's lovely. Greek myths, yeah. Oh, thank you so much for sharing them with you. It's really, really lovely to just get an idea of the stories that they're with you in a sense. And now I'm gonna invite Kiriki whilst I'm changing my background as well.
Thank you everybody for sharing the stories that came up to mind. For the next part, feel free to have your cameras off. We're slightly going to move towards the storytelling sharing. But first of all, I would like to invite you to help me so that together can create a fire. This will be an imaginary kind of magical fire, so it will be a safe fire, as big or as little, as warm, as cool as you want it to be. We're going to create our collective fire, but it is also going to be an atomic fire as well. So in doing that, I would like to invite everyone to create the warmth or the coolness within your hands. Yes, getting ready for the fire to light in the middle. And whenever you feel ready, creating our shared fire. Allowing ourselves to feel the warmth, the coolness that the fire brings, seeing how our bodies feel close to the fire, And when we've enjoyed our fire, we can then make a decision, each one for themselves. Yes, marshmallows are completely invited. So having the fire for now put at a part of the space where you are. It could be anywhere. So the fire will be there during our storytelling. So I'm putting my fire over here for now.
It's worth mentioning, it's an imaginary fire. There's no need to risk assess anything.
Yes, can be a cool fire as well.
It doesn't burn anything. It's pure fire, but it just doesn't burn anything. It just keeps warmth and nice atmosphere. Yeah.
And making ourselves comfortable to listen to our story. So once upon a time, in a place far, far away, but not too far from here, there was a traveler. He was walking along a country road. He had been traveling restlessly for a long time. He had been looking for something, though he did not know what he was looking for. One morning, he found himself in front of a walled garden. He was curious to see the garden, though he did not know how to get in. There was no way in. Then he saw a vine growing round the garden. Searching amongst the leaves and branches, he found a door handle. He tried the handle and the door opened.
Inside, the traveler found such a beautiful garden. It was filled with bushes, trees, flowers, butterflies, singing birds. But the garden was heavily overgrown with lots of brambles and weeds. A little further on, he heard a sound of digging and scrapping. So he moved towards it. And there he saw a gardener. The gardener was trying to take off a patch of weed from the ground. The traveler decided and offered his help to the gardener, and they indeed worked all day long to clear the weed from the garden. When at last they did, they came upon a wonderful, beautiful, beautiful scented herb. The gardener thanked the traveler for his help and gave him a piece of that herb. The traveler said goodbye to the gardener and went on his way.
Had not gone far when he noticed a frog panting at the side of the road. The frog was exhausted after straying too far away from the river. The traveler bent over the frog with concern, and it was then that a piece of the herb fell on the frog. Immediately, the frog sat up, refreshed, and, well enough, thanked the traveler and hopped on its way.
A little further on, the traveler heard some yelping, and then a dog limped out from some bushes on its three paws, holding up the fourth, as if it was mangled in a trap just before. Then the traveler remembered what had happened with the frog, so he took a piece of the herb and rubbed it onto the dog's paw. And immediately, the wound healed over just like that, and the dog went on its way with no trace of a limp.
After days of traveling, the traveler found himself at the outskirts of a town, and there he met a weeping woman with a dying child in her arms. The traveler gave a piece of the herb to the woman, and the woman administered it to the child. The child recovered immediately.
And the man traveled on and used the herb to help everyone who needed it. And very strangely, however much he used it, the herb did not fade or get any smaller. Whenever he gave away a piece of it, It grew back to its original size and shape.
The man became known as a healer, and people in all sorts of trouble started to seek him out. At length, he realized that it was the herb that he was looking for on his travels.
So just take a second to just orient yourself towards the room, wherever you're sitting, wherever you are, and think about the story, really. Think about the traveler's journey for a second, starting on its own, looking for something, finding the gardener, his work with the gardener, the herb, how he used it, and how he continued traveling and helping others. Our invitation is to allow you to creatively respond to the story you've heard. And we're going to invite you to do this in a few different ways. And please choose the one that just feels right to you, the one that you're like, I'm going to do this. And remember, it's all about just the process. And you're not going to be asked to share anything if you don't want to with us. So just feel free to be curious with it and see what's coming up. So what I'm going to do on the chat, I have shared the story. I'm going to do it now. So it's a very long message. It's not an aggressive one. So it is the story, but I want to bring your attention towards the end of my chat. So these are some of our invitations, if you like, of how you can respond creatively. One, you can potentially draw a scene. Again, remember, you may be a wonderful, actually, artist, but it's more about just drawing a scene that stayed with you, a scene that you may feel particularly curious about and you want to explore it more. Another thing you can do is to actually continue the story, asking yourself, okay, what happened next? And continue writing about what happens next in the story. You can also think about whether there was something in the story that you didn't like and you just want to change it. You want to give you the opportunity to just change it and see where it goes next. Again, create a different potential ending. You can also think of the different characters of the story and write a letter to them. Is there anything you would like to say to them? And again, you will have the time. Sometimes it's good to just start writing. It's another way. Just start writing without stopping. No need to make sense of it. No need to have any grammar. It's it's an opportunity to do as many mistakes as you like. But you can just. How would it be if you just wrote a letter to one of the characters of the story? And as a final suggestion, it could be to respond to the story through a movement, or any other way that may feel relevant to you. It can be a song or something that just feels right to you. There are so many possibilities. So I'm going to stop now talking and would really like to give you 10 minutes. So you've got all this time to just allow yourself to creatively respond to this story of the healing herb.
And the invitation now is to gently start bringing your consciousness back to this shared online space. If it feels appropriate, feel free to turn on your camera. Take a minute to see how the body feels as well. Sometimes it happens that stories land on particular parts of our body, or particular parts of our body hold some tension regarding the story, which is interesting to look at and reflect on. So the invitation now is, if it feels appropriate, to share with us something about your response, or how it felt to respond to the story in any way that you chose to respond. You can raise your hand if you want to, you can put something on the chat, that's completely up to you.
David,
Yeah, I'll go first. I really enjoyed it, but the thing was, it got my mind racing then, and I didn't draw. I created that.
Oh, wow.
So I started thinking about what you said, and I went, "What does it sound? It sounds like." And I kept thinking about me, and I was like, "Yeah, I've got some energy, but I've got a lot of people who drain me." I kind of picturing, what about that herb? What was that like? And it's like, what feeds my brain, my soul, my energy? And I was like, yeah, well, a lot of people might not match my standards, but I should still do that. And then I thought, what would I say to, or you said like write a letter, and the only thing I could say was, I need that person to take a rest. They need to chill out, hand over to me, and if they hand it over to me, the next part of that journey would be me riding on a big red dragon with a smile on my face back to Wales, where I'm originally from, and living the dream, if you like. So yeah, it really made me think, and it did make me think as well. On a flip side, was my past was I spent 22 years in the military, and I started thinking about some of my background, and I didn't want to bring that, so I wanted to get on my dragon and fly away. So no, that's me. Thanks very much. Excellent. I enjoyed it.
Thanks so much, David, for sharing. How creative, I have to say, with going with a word and putting pictures, and thank you so much for sharing your creation. Anne, I've got your hand up.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was a really powerful story, but I think for me, and I'm not even going to attempt to hold up the picture I drew because it's appalling. My art skills are really poor, but I think for me, I was just mindful of two things really: noticing what's present around you and appreciating and being in that moment. I think for me really jumped out of that, because obviously in the story the traveller was constantly looking for something, and I think we have a tendency to do that and not being present and mindful of actually what's all around you. But I think the other, with my sort of work hat on, the other thing that we used to do more of pre-pandemic, when we were doing organisational developments face to face more often, was the power of drawing to bring out things that words don't necessarily do. And I know, the number of times I've set people off on a task to draw what the future is going to be like, and actually what comes out could often be different than how it would be described. So I hadn't really sort of made that connection with storytelling before, so it was I thought that was quite powerful for me.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you very much.
I decided to do a bit of a sequel, like continue the story a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if I'm going to read it all out, but should I give it a go? Should I give it a go? It's not too long. All right. So some years later, the traveller grew weary of long roads and unknown towns. He knew that it was time to reflect and remain in one place. He had spent so much of his time helping others that he wanted a bit of space for himself. Steadily, he built a humble abode protected in beautiful shrubbery and flowers. It was a quiet, peaceful existence. On what happened to be a normal day, the sun shining down on the former traveller, a gentle snap of a twig disturbed him from his daily inspection of the garden. Suddenly, from the shadows, a young woman traveller appeared from the foliage. The pair spoke at length, and gradually realization dawned on the man they'd met before. Saying farewell to the young woman, the traveller gifted her a piece of the herb. A young dying child had become the heir to saving life. And I think I went with that because, like, I really like what Lorraine's put in the chat actually about the metaphor, and also like when you've got those sorts of ideas, passing them down onto next generation stuff. I thought that would be a good little twist with it. So yeah, the dying child was the next generation.
That's lovely. It's so beautiful to see how imagination can, it's so different. I'm sure everyone did something so different, but so relatable to themselves, and just something that just felt, real to you. And I know there's lots of comments on the chat. So, Lorraine, he replaced the herb in the story with the traveler's heart. Oh, beautiful. It was his kind heart that never grew smaller, but in fact became larger with greater capacity to show love and empathy. I love that. It was his kind heart and the attention he bestowed on others that made them feel safe and allowed them to heal. A metaphor for how empathy begets empathy. That's lovely. Thank you so much. And Carrie, the traveler retraced his steps to find the garden again to thank the man, but he couldn't. He continued his journey by the lake. There was one on this and kept wondering. Again, what happens next in the story from Julia? Kings and love and living forever, then dying. Okay, well, sometimes because you're mentioning here, Julia, about running out of ideas, it's totally fine. Maybe, the story that came, that just was it. You always give time to make sure people can sometimes go back and change things, can just allow themselves to reflect on what they've created during the time.
There is also sometimes this idea that particular stories, for some reasons, don't click with us, or they create this response that there is something there not really of interest, or I don't know, this unknown area. Listening to everyone's responses, I would say that it has been very powerful to listen, very, very interesting, and thinking about the themes a bit. So something about the rest, taking space, considering the past, imagining the future. Something about not the product per se, but the process of imagining. And I'm keeping the dragon as well that you shared, David. I loved this idea. And maybe thinking as well as an inspiration from this story and this response, the question, the topic of today. So, do you think that stories can look after us in a way? If you have any ideas, any thoughts on that, feel free to either again write or raise your hand.
Anne, I think, went first, and then Lorraine.
Yeah, I mean, I think I love storytelling. I think I love the power that stories have to sort of make an idea land with somebody. And I love the Brené Brown quote, maybe stories are just data with soul. And I think that just makes it real for people. So yeah, definitely, in answer to your question, yes. I think they help us.
Kyriaki, would you like to lead us on to that? Did you remember that fire we had somewhere?
Yes. Do you remember somewhere in your space there is a fire, an imaginary fire, small one, bigger one, depending on what you created before. It could be a cool fire, a warm fire. So the invitation now, if someone joined on later, take a breath and improvise. My suggestion is, so somewhere we've left from the beginning a small fire burning, a controlled imaginary fire. So the invitation is now to bring that fire back in. So allow that shared fire come in the middle again. Seeing how it feels to have this fire in front of us. Maybe we want to feel how the fire feels in our hands, in our fingers. If it is a warm fire and we need this warmth, allow it to warm us again. If it is a cool fire, allow it to cool us down again. And let's decide together, but at the same time, each one for ourselves, how we would like to put this fire out. So it could be anything. It could have to do with water, with sound, anyone can make a decision on how we want our own fire to be put out for now. And taking a time to symbolize that putting out. And when everyone's fire is put out, or whatever you want to make with the fire, we can again bring our consciousness back to our safe, shared space.
Absolutely excellent session, ladies. Many thanks. It gave me a lot of thought. Also, I'm already thinking about how I can use this in some of our Leadership Matters sessions about, you know, rather than doing maybe role play or flip charts, is getting people to create stories on reflections. What was their journey like through the pandemic? Change their names, change their locations, but think about it differently. So thank you very much. Really great that everyone participated, lots of engagement, and once again it was great to come on a session where I didn't know what to expect, and every day is a school day, and it's just been great. And I've still got a picture of a big red dragon, but also Jack's story. I'm like, that guy is wasted. Whatever career he's going in, he needs to get into films or something, doesn't he? And the way you told it, Jack, it was just beautiful. So I'm just going to finish off with a couple of slides. Ladies and gents that are still on the call, like I said, this is recorded for all our colleagues as well, but you know, it's okay not to be okay. Sometimes, you know, listening to sessions, listening to other people can invoke things, and if anyone has had any of those kind of reactions, please feel free to use the names or the numbers on the screen there, and it's okay to reach out for help. Someone will be there to grab you and listen to you. Please, when I learned how to click onto the next screen, feedback, no such thing as failure. There is only feedback, and feedback's a gift. If you've got those funky dunky new phones, what use QR scanners, do that stuff. And please, once again, let's share our feedback. And once again, there is a gift. And I forgot what the gift was. It was a subscription to Happy News. That was it, a year's subscription. I think it was a year. I could be giving some away, but it's a year's subscription to Happy News. If it's not more than a year, I'm sure Anne will take it out of the budget or something like that. Please, there is loads more resources out there. Join our Wellbeing Festival all week. There is so much. And also, you know, share it with your colleagues who may be working different patterns, etc. to you, and share those QR codes there. There is the calendar. So if you've got a smartphone, click it. It's there now. It is on different staff rooms, different emails, and the QR code will link to it. But you can see there, we're already nearly getting through our first day, which has been absolutely phenomenal so far. And the rest of our journey is looking just as damn good. Please, if you're one of those down with the kids and using socials these days, the hashtag VWBF22, there's too many words in that even for me. Okay, please get on there, shout about it, share your experiences, because people are nosy, and if they go, what's that, they want to come and have a look. And well-being is about sharing and caring. So the more you shout, the more visibility we create, the more people join in. And for those that can't, then they can go and look at it later on, because everything is on record. So that leaves us to say thank you very much to Kariaki and Danai for taking us through an awesome journey, and for everyone listening in. It's been an absolute pleasure. Have a safe evening and enjoy it. And off you go to your stories. Continue your storytelling. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Take good care.
Thank you both so much. That was so good. I'm going to have to fly off now because I've got another call, but thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your support, guys.
Cheers. That's been brilliant. Thank you. And cheers,
you.
Jack,
Really
and
enjoyed
everyone
that.
in the background.
Thanks, Dave. Brilliantly done. See you later, all.
See you later. Have a good evening.